Hello, I'm Benjamin Friedman, and I'm a history buff. And I came across something that really moved me, and I'd like to share it with you. The date was May 3rd, 1982. Into the crowded Knesset chamber limped Prime Minister Menachem Begin. Begin had recently suffered a hip injury, and he was still hurting from it quite badly. He struggled up to the podium to deliver a message that the crowded chamber was waiting to hear. It was the results of a long deliberation. In a quiet voice, Menachem Begin announced that the government had decided to cease operations of El Al Airlines on the Shabbos and Jewish holidays. Upon that announcement, a furor erupted. People were screaming at him. You know how it works in the parliamentary system. The people scream out. And they were saying, what are you going to do? Are you going to shut down football also? Why don't you shut down the TV broadcasts on the Shabbos? Begin waited them out, and then he responded. And I'll read you some excerpts from his response because I was very moved by them. Begin said, 40 years ago, I returned from exile to Eretz Yisrael. Engraved in my memory still are the lives of millions of diaspora Jews, simple, ordinary folks, eking out a livelihood in that forlorn place where the storms of anti-Semitism raged. They were not permitted to work on the Christian day of rest, and they would not work on their own day of rest. For they lived by the commandment, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. So each week, they forswore 2 whole days of hard-worn bread. This meant destitution for many, but they would not desecrate the Sabbath day. Shabbat is one of the loftiest values of all of humanity. It originated with us. It's ours. No other civilization in history knew of a day of rest. Ancient Egypt, a great culture whose treasures are on view till this day, they did not have a day of rest. The Greeks of old excelled in philosophy and the arts, yet they did not know of a day of rest. Rome established a great and mighty empire and instituted a system of law that's relevant till today. Yet they didn't know of a day of rest. Assyria, Babylon, Persia, India, China, none of them knew of a day of rest. At this point, left-wing minister Yossi Sarid screamed out, so put on a yarmulke. Chutzpah, boomed Begin in return, bristling. I speak of our people's most hallowed values, and you dare to stoop to mockery? Shame on you. Then arms up, fists balled, he thundered. One nation alone sanctified the Shabbat, a small nation. The nation that heard the voice at Sinai, so that your manservant and your maidservant may rest as well as you. Ours was the nation that enthroned the Shabbat queen as the sovereign. A crescendo of approval from the government benches sent the rafters rattling. So Begin thundered, so are we in our own reborn Jewish state to allow the blue and white El Al planes to fly to and fro as if broadcasting to the world that there is no Shabbat? Should we, who by faith and tradition heard the commandment at Sinai, now deliver a message to all and sundry through our blue and white El Al planes? No, don't remember the Shabbat. Forget the Shabbat day. Desecrate the Shabbat day. I shudder at the thought, said Begin. The ensuing ruckus was terrific. So Begin himself raised his palms and then lowered them gently once, twice, thrice, until the furor quieted itself. Begin continued, know this, we cannot assess the religious, national, social, historical, and ethical values of the Shabbat day by the yardstick of financial loss or gain. In our revived Jewish state, we simply cannot engage in such calculations when dealing with an eternal and cardinal value of the Jewish people, Shabbat, for which our ancestors were ready to give their lives. One more thing, one need not be a pious Jew to accept this principle. One need only be a Jew. El Al ceased flying on Shabbat. Some years later, they began to fly again, however, only cargo and for operational purposes, but they still don't carry passengers until this very day. The description of the events that I read to you is given by Yehuda Avner, aide to Menachem Begin, who was present at the time, based on his notes and the transcripts. If you'd like to read more about it, just Google halting El Al on Shabbos, Menachem Begin, cross currents. And you can read the entire text and description by Yehuda Avner, which I found very moving. I'm Binyamin Friedman, glad to do this, and hope you're enjoying all the offerings that the Kollel brings to you. Be well.